I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Mary.
Mrs. Brew.
Here.
Mr. Kramer.
Here.
Mr. Meneghini.
Here.
Mr. Oja.
Here.
Mr. Pop.
Do I have a motion to excuse Mr. Pop?
I'll make the motion to excuse Mr. Pop. Support.
Mr. Kramer.
Yes.
Mr. Meneghini.
Yes.
Mr. Oja.
Yes.
Mrs. Brew.
Yes. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Mr. Anderson, you have an addition?
Yeah, we tabled the chipper purchase at the last meeting, and it didn't get onto the agenda on Thursday afternoon when I put this out, so I'd like to request that we consider adding it.
All right, so that would be 15.
That would be 15.
Anybody have a problem with that?
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Mr. Meneghini.
Yes.
Mr. Oja.
Yes.
Mrs. Brew.
Yes.
Mr. Kramer.
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval of the minutes for regular meeting of March 19th, 2018. Do I have any questions on the minutes? I had one, just because I wasn't here. I noticed it said, under public comments, we had somebody come in and there was a question on Oak Crest Drive.
Yeah, there was a question concerning getting a cable run down Oak Crest Drive. We've looked at that a number of times, and I think what we left it with is that, again, it has to be, you know, have that person go and talk to the residents again. They've had a petition drive before, but I asked the cable department and Packerland or CCI to give us some additional numbers, just so we knew what the current costs are, you know, for that. Plus, if we're considering selling property down at the end of Oak Crest Drive, it may be something we also, you know, want to consider.
Okay, that was the only question I had. If there's no other questions, do I have approval of the minutes?
I'll make a motion we approve minutes of the regular meeting of March 19th.
Support.
Mr. Oja.
Yes.
Mrs. Brew.
Yes.
Mr. Kramer.
Yes.
Mr. Meneghini.
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval of the manifest 2018-7. Brett, do you have any questions on the manifest?
No, I do not.
Lee?
Yeah, I got one question here. Page 1, under Police Department, maintenance equipment and building, river, well, no, wrong one, I'm sorry. Public Works, halfway down in Public Works, mine safety training for 2 employees. Mine safety training, what?
Whenever we go to a gravel pit, we have to have mine safety training certificates in order for our truck drivers to go in.
To go into a gravel pit.
Correct. They consider gravel pits mines.
Okay, that's all I have.
Jeremy?
No questions.
Okay, and then I had one on the first page. Computer expenses, they're both for GoTech. I know I probably asked this before, but is that a monthly charge when it says support service for backup?
That's monthly.
Every month they do
and
that?
The bottom one is March.
Yep.
And then April, yep. It's per
Okay.
month.
And then I also had a question, being I wasn't here, but under the water fund, I see that we're renting a loader, backhoe.
Correct.
Is that what we're gonna keep doing, or we're gonna do?
Well, it's on the agenda. We need to rent a loader in the short term until our current loader gets fixed.
Okay, so we're not looking at, I guess I knew it was on the agenda, so we're looking at fixing the old one?
Yes, we're looking at
not looking
fixing-
at buying a backhoe?
No.
Okay.
I have one more question here, I forgot it. Under electric utility, Mead and Hunt, Powerhouse Bridge Crane. Now, is that just for the engineering on it, or is that the actual work that was done on it?
That's the evaluation that we had done on the support structure and the crane itself. That was something that came up, what was it, last fall, late fall?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
December. And so they finished it, I've got the report, and they're done with their work.
So we haven't really done anything mechanically on it yet then?
No, there's no work has been done.
And we're gonna need it for the runners?
No,
No?
that's the bridge crane that's inside the powerhouse. And actually, from the report, the structural is in fine shape. They had no issues with the designations, the load designations and the calculations. They did still have some questions on the crane itself, just because of the age. And so that's something we still have to
I'm assuming
discuss.
that's original equipment, yet,
It's-
that crane?
I'm assuming it's near original. But I asked the guys if they've ever used a main crane, and actually what they've done is they've used the underside, they have to use the structural, not so much the crane itself. Because we haven't had to pull the whole stator unit out, and that's really what that would be for. So we have to, before we use it, we have to decide, either get it load tested and certified, or look at other options.
Right, because wasn't that looked at when they were looking at something else?
Yes,
And then
that-
that's why we went back in and,
We were working on the gearing system that moves that assembly structure, and when we were looking at that, then the questions came up about the whole crane assembly itself. And so, that's where we're at with it. I mean, between the hook, the chains, and the 20-ton crane, I mean, we'd have to load test it in order to certify it.
okay.
That's it.
If there's no other questions, I need a approval on the manifest.
Okay, one question though is, I know you can do this afterwards, but at the previous meetings, we talked about questions that came up in the last manifest. You want to do it after we approve this manifest?
Yeah, and then we
Okay.
can go through that.
All right.
I'll make a motion, we approve manifest 2018-7 in the amount of $212,522.28.
Support.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes,
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Mr. Oja.
Yes.
okay, at this time, if anybody wants to address the audience with anything that is on the agenda for tonight, they may do so. If not, there's a time for public participation towards the end. We'll move on to our,
want me to-
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Just, there were a couple questions that came up on the last manifest. There was a question regarding the cherry bomb wipes. What that is that's a dry towelette that they put in the truck, in the garbage trucks, when they're away from water and soap. So it's a sanitary type of dry wipe that they use. And then there was a question on the boiler, and that's the steamer.
Oh,
So, and then we talked about parts for the front end loader, that was at number 129, we didn't have the number, the equipment number. So that was the road machinery and supply.
so all questions were
All questions
asked and answered?
asked and answered, yep.
Okay. We'll move on to a public hearing. Do we need a motion to go into a public hearing?
Yep.
I'll make a motion, we go into public hearing?
Support.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Mr. Oja.
Yes.
Mrs. Brew.
Yes. Mr. Anderson?
Okay, the public hearing, this is a standard procedure that we have when we are working with rural development on purchasing squad cars, the vehicles. This particular case is the police squad. We roll our inventory every 2 years, and so this is the year that we would be working with rural development to purchase a vehicle. We typically get a 40% grant for our squads, but this particular year, see, I put an email in your packet from rural development. They actually believe we qualify for 55%. So looks like we may be able to get a little more grant funding this year.
How many years has it been? Every 2 years, but for how many years have we been doing that?
Jim, do you know how many, I mean, this goes way back to
Fred Smith was still here,
easily, yeah.
yeah. Probably
I think the one time we might have went 3 is when we purchased the SUV,
Yeah, we went an extra year on that
and
one.
we did an
Right,
extra
yeah.
year. But for squads, we go to 2 years.
Yeah. As long as I can remember, it's been every 2 years, and I've been here for 10, so.
Okay. And we are in need?
We have, yes, we're looking at replacing, in 2013, it has 141,000 miles on it. Our insurance carrier would like us to replace the cars at 100,000 miles, which is an unrealistic expectation. We told them we would try and do it at 125,000. They said, try your best, essentially.
Is there any other questions? If not, we need a motion to go back into open session.
Make a motion to go back into open session.
Support,
Mr. Menegini?
yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes,
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
we'll move on to presentation. Mr. Dean Hulse from TCR. Welcome, Dean.
I just came, we've been working for going in our 5th year of maintenance down at the hydro. And for the last 2 years, I think it's been 3 years since I've been here to update. The last 2 years, Ray and I have tried to put it together when it worked. And never worked for me, would work for you. So basically what I'm doing is, because we have a 5-year contract, which we're going into our 5th year right now. So I just wanted to give you an update of what we've done, where we've been, and what we found, so you have an idea of where your money's been going. So I got, Mike is gonna move there for me, but you know, some of you guys, I know you work weekly or monthly on the rest of the hydro, and you're talking about the turbines and all the other issues. But one of the things that's happening within FERC is they're paying a lot more attention, and they're drawing a lot more responsibility out of the owners in the concrete structures and what's happening there because of the age. You can go back, Mike, if you would, sorry. This was a picture I found, I think this was right after it was, the original, it was 1905 when this was built. The second powerhouse isn't even there yet, but it looks like there's maybe some work being done there. But, and one of the things I wanted to talk about with that, because of the age, is there's been very little concrete work done out there since that time. 1980s, there was some work, you can move it forward, Mike, if you would. And because of the lack of work that's been done, there's a lot of, this is over on the spillways, but this is very similar to what a lot of the concrete is looking like on the place. And we're getting there. You can start, go ahead, Mike. When we first started this, Joe Pickard had gotten a call, or had gotten an inspection from FERC, and FERC had, actually it was on the spillways on the Wisconsin side, had a concern, and he asked him to take a look at it. Decided there's a lot of other work. Well, before we got to that, FERC decided that this was the worst. We started evaluating what needed to be done over 5 years. This is the southwest corner of the Wisconsin side powerhouse, the newer powerhouse. We got down in here, and if you look here and up in here, it's hard to see you can't really see it on this one, but there's actually trees growing out right there. This was, you could literally go in and pull concrete out with your hand. I mean, it was that bad. And this is the structure that's holding the whole thing up. So this was our first year, and you go to the next one, like you can see, I took this picture Friday when Tim was down doing his work. I snuck in, not sneak in, he told me he was going to be there. So this was the first job over a 5-year plan, which we presented to those of you that were here, which was only 2 of you at that time, I think, that are still here now. The rest of the 5 years, we've not stuck to our plan. When we got here, we got to this point, we started looking, go ahead, Mike. The concrete was a lot worse than what we anticipated. This is the west side of that powerhouse. And what we found with that first year is as we took concrete away, water was coming through that structure. I mean, not just cracks, water was coming through the concrete. So with that, we moved inside go to the next one, I think, Mike. We ended up moving inside and starting on the inside. The next 2 years we spent in number 3 and number 4 turbine housings to seal off the inside of those turbine housings and try to help that from the positive aspect of the water pressure to stop that. So to date, what we've done in the 4 years is going into our 5th year. We did this lower part of the turbine housing, or sorry, below the turbine housings in the face of the Wisconsin side powerhouse. We did inside of the number 3 and number 4. We did the outside of this. If you go back one, Mike, I think you can see, this is what we fixed last year. And this was literally, again, you hit it with a hammer and it just crumbled. And we did bring in, the only engineering we've really done since then, we did bring Mead and Hunt in because we were concerned about the load on the concrete. If that was full, what we had to do, we were concerned about that much weight overhead. If that concrete was bad, we started removing it. You can go forward a couple of things. So. No, sorry. I'll keep going back to the. One of the reasons I wanted to show you, if you go back again, go back to the face of the dam. One of the things, no, to the whole dam picture. Okay. One of the reasons I wanted to, and for some of you that may know a lot of this, I apologize. But this whole dam, which all of Menominee River, the face of these dams face south and southwest. Well, as water comes through the concrete and gets cracks in there, which it does in age, and when we're talking about 120 years old, what happens is that water gets into those cracks and it freezes and thaws, especially on that south side because it warms up above freezing every day, and it freezes, and every time that ice builds, it's a 10,000 psi pressure, the pressure that's working those cracks, and it keeps breaking and breaking and breaking it. So this isn't, what you guys have here is nothing different than any other dam. Most every dam in the UP was built within a 15 years period. So that's what we did there. What we've been doing, you go ahead, one more. What we've been doing, and this is an old one now, but been working, getting this to Ray every year because of FERC, because of your licensing with FERC every year. We've been giving them an updated, so they know that there's a plan, and they know that what's being done from year to year. As you can see, 2014, we completed what we planned. The rest of this moved down, and we just moved into things that were more important structurally to fix. So the other thing I wanted to tell you with that is that one of the things that we also have been doing is, and Ray can attest to this, and when Joe was here, and I've talked to Tim about it, is as we come towards the end of the year, right now we're budgeting basically $80,000 a year. There's years, most years we've come close to that. We've got add-on work. If we haven't spent it, what we're trying to do is find something within that year where we can go troubleshoot something that's going to save you long term. So we use up that budget money. Last year we went out in the piers out on the far dam on the Wisconsin side. We're leaking badly, and that's what our job is going to be this summer if everything goes right. And it's leaking bad from the upstream side right through, and you can see the cracks just flowing. So we actually went in and injected those last fall so it didn't go through another freeze stock, drilled holes through the piers and did that. So we're trying to look out ahead. One of the things we're trying to do this year, if it works out, is combining 2 years, because on that Wisconsin, I think forward, no. On the Wisconsin, go ahead, side of the structure, the mobilization out there costs are so high that we're trying to combine 2 years into one so we can get it all done, all the stuff we have to mobilize for in 1 year, which will save the city about $20,000 in mobilization, because we're going to probably have to bring a barge in there to get everything out to work on it. So that's the plan for this year, is to try to do that. A few things that are left, and I wanted to go over with as we prioritize, and Ray has and Tim has a list of what we've done of. If we keep going with it, because we've backed off and moved into things we hadn't anticipated by going inside the dam, is after these, you can see these wing walls, how bad they are. Saw that one before, that other one, literally you can tap on them with your hand and pieces fall off. They're structurally sound. Actually did some testing last year too while we were out there and drilled some holes and tested. So structurally it's not going to fall apart. The outer part is, and it's just going to eventually crumble if we don't take care of it. When we're done with that, The next thing we're recommending is doing the face of these dams. You go back when you'll be able to see again what's happened here over 100 and some years. And do that, work on the face of the dam on the Wisconsin side, and then if you keep going, there you can see some more, keep going, you should be able to get to, no, we bypassed them. Number one and number two turbine housings. Once we get those sealed on the inside, you can see here, this is the face of the number two, and then if you look at the number one, it's even worse. This is all cracks where the water's seeping through. We're hoping to seal that off this year on the inside. We budgeted for, or you budgeted for that last year, and because of getting everything that's going on with the turbine, we didn't get to that. You guys had to fill it again. So what we're doing is hoping to fill that inside, and then over the next, after the Wisconsin side dam is done, then if you guys approve it, then what we do is we go through it, just go right across the whole face and try to give it all new. And what we looked at in that last, right there, and this actually came from my original presentation here 5 years ago now, is we really looked at it as a partnership. Ray and I meet several times a year on it. You know, we talk, when it gets past Tim, it goes to Tim, and it goes to Gerald out there. So we try to stay out of the partnership. So it's our best thing to do is try to save you guys money on what we're doing, because long term, it works for us as well. So if anybody have any questions on what we're doing out there or what we've done, or
what you worked on last year, wasn't that inside the dam? Inside, not outside, right?
well, we sealed off around the bulkhead on the number one and the number one housing, but we couldn't finish sealing that inside. You had the money was there. The money was budgeted last year. There's about $75,000 left from that. I think that's what we came up with, and so that's what talked to Tim the other day, and if you can keep it down long enough, depending on flows, that's one of the problems. We've had high flows the last couple of years.
Because it has to be dewatered for that?
It does have to be dewatered to do it. So from there, we went to the outside, that outside corner that you can see the crumbling off. So that was, we fixed that last year. So.
Just from the management side, we've all heard of issues over the years with certain dams. FERC is very sensitive. They come out annually, do their inspection. We have to file our DSSMR, which is a dam safety management report, and they look at the structure when they do those inspections more than anything. So the problems that they've encountered over the years have I think it's almost 100% have been on earthen dams, which we do not have. I mean, we're in bedrock. But yet we're still under a very high scrutiny from FERC for the safety, and they're looking at that concrete. And so, we have on a regular basis through the FERC requirements to address the concrete. And I think they're very happy with our program. They're patient. I mean, as much frustration as sometimes we have in our licensing effort and what we have to do and the requirements we have, overall, because we are addressing on a regular basis proper maintenance, they've been very good to work with. They've been very good to, as far as a patience level.
And that's not always the case with FERC.
It's not always the case, and it's when you ignore them and when you try to persuade them, I guess would be a better term, that what something's not necessary. I think it's best to work with them, and so we've been good partners. FERC's recognized that. So
we've been trying to do that annually as to update that, and it changes. It's a very fluid report that we've given them, because a few years ago, right up against the Wisconsin bank, there was a spout coming out right through the bedrock. And Joe called and he said, how quickly, I think we were there in a day or two, and had that stopped because FERC said that needs to be done. So we've been kind of on call for you guys as much as we can as well.
And another example, last year when we were working with that DC conversion, we were getting leaking through the powerhouse wall. We asked TCR, I think you were on another project, we asked you to look at it, did some injections and.
We had a short time to get there, because Tim was anxious to get back up and running, so.
Right, and then we found out that all we were doing is chasing the leak, different spots, and
Yeah.
recognizing that there's a potentially larger project that we have to deal with, and so.
Right, and that's one of the things, I gave Ray a projection, Tim a projection on what we see over the next period of years. One of the main things that's gonna have to be done eventually, and it's been a long time, and I think it was when Joe first started here, and I don't know how long, many years ago that was. But you're probably gonna have to dewater eventually, dewater the back of the dam. There's a crack, which we fixed most of it. The water that was running into if anybody was ever out there, when the water was running in that back wall, that's mostly dry now, so we've been able to fix it. But those cracks go out beyond that. So eventually, I think you're gonna have to drain that and then address the whole back of the structure. Right now, we're addressing everything that goes out the front, because that's your freeze thaw, but eventually the backside.
Dean, you're talking about dewatering the forebay?
So, which has been done.
Yeah.
But it's not a small project. That's bringing all four. And if you did that, we were the ones that worked with you on that, we would have to have our people ready and get that done as quickly as possible. Which and we're not talking weeks and weeks and weeks, but we are probably talking a couple weeks of no power. That may be 3 years down the line, maybe 5 years, but you're gonna have to address that fairly soon. So.
When you make up the plan for what has to be done down there, do you do the things that FERC is asking you to do first?
Yes.
Is that how you prioritize
And
it?
they've not questioned, so far every year when we give them that update, they've not come back as far as to me and questioned what should we do next? Or why are we doing this? They've approved pretty much everything we've laid out for you, so. And nothing, I don't want to put any engineers down, but we've saved a lot of money engineering wise, because most of this is just fairly, it's not common, it just happens to be, the guys that work for TCR, my dad started that doing concrete restoration 55 years or so ago, and it's flowed right down through Mike Egris and the guys that he's got now, so. Well, we have brought in Mead and Hunt, and we have talked to, what needs to be done for the most part. Most of it we're able to address, and we've had a question we brought in, so FERC has not questioned anything to this point, so.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're saving you some money that way, because you bring in consultants and everything else, it's gonna be, I'm down there probably 10 times a year, going over the stuff and looking at it, and then meeting with Ray and with Tim, the last couple of years, and some with Tim as well, so. Okay.
As far as this 5-year plan, what we're doing in the future, we'll be talking about the budget, in the budget hearings coming up here shortly, and then we'll have a series of approvals that the council will be looking at, and we'll package it at that point. You'll see it.
Come in, I'm going to say, hey, Dean, if we have questions, I'll be here if you do have questions when that comes.
Thank
Okay?
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
We'll move on to Resolution 2018-04. Mr. Anderson?
Well, every year, we put together a proclamation recognizing Arbor Day. This year, April 27th. This is, I believe, the 4th year in a row. It's the 4th or 5th that the city of Norway is a Tree City, USA. We just received our designation again this year. And so we have a resolution for council, Resolution 2018-04, recognizing April 27th as Arbor Day in the city of Norway.
Do we have any questions on that, or I need a motion on the resolution?
I'll make a motion, the resolution 2018-04 be approved, designating April 27th, 2018 as Arbor Day in the city of Norway.
Support. Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval, USDA RD Water Project Equipment, 3/4 ton pickup truck with plow. Mr. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've talked about, through the course of the water and sewer projects, different equipment needs and purchasing. We have in the budget $33,000 for the purchase of a new pickup with plow in the water. And we went out for bids on that, and we have those results in front of you. Chrysler World from Abrams, Wisconsin, gave us a price for a 3/4 ton pickup per spec with plow for $30,556, which is under budget. We only received one other bid, and that's from Era Chevrolet here in town, which was at $37,000. So we are putting this in front of council. I know it's very tough to not buy local, very, very tough. And, but the pricing is about $6,500 difference, so it's up to council whether or not they want to, how they want to handle the difference in pricing.
Well, I'm for buying local as much as we can, but I can't justify $6,500 difference on a $30-some thousand item.
Yeah, I agree with Lee. Even though we would only be spending $4,000 of our cash for it, it's still, that's more than what I'd want to go over. If it was closer, then I'd definitely go local. But
And we've worked with them before in the past. We've had similar issues, I think there's an understanding. So, but, it's try to, like I said, we would give them premium, for the local purchase, but it's up to council on what that number is.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I was looking through here, and obviously I missed it. What kind of plow is on here?
It's a Boss plow.
Oh, it is a Boss, for
Boss.
both units for Boss? Oh, okay. Well, that part's local.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of a 2018 3/4 ton pickup with plow that be awarded to Chrysler World for a price of $30,556.
Support.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes?
Mr. Kramer,
No.
Mr. Menegini,
Yes.
Mr. Oja,
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval of scrap tire cleanup grant agreement for fiscal year 2017-18. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Go back up to 11, Water Department Equipment Lease Agreement.
Yeah, this is something that came up about a little over a week ago, where our backhoe, our current water department backhoe, seized up, the rear end seized up. And, that's a pretty valuable piece of equipment for us, especially this time of year, if we get water freeze issues, water leak issues. So we did call around, checked with Nortrax from Escanaba to John Deere. So obviously we called Nortrax and Escanaba, gave you some pricing. Their option is we are going to send it down there to get it fixed. So we asked them what cost for a rental unit, and theirs is $3,000 a month. We've already worked out shipping with Scott Moran for $300. We did have them, we called Miller Bradford for a case backhoe, and theirs is at $24.50 per month, but it costs an extra $1,000 for shipping. And then and that doesn't include the $300 is to bring the backhoe down there. We still have to bring it to Nortrax. It's a John Deere. And then Baco, we called Baco just to see if they would rent us a piece of equipment. They do not rent out their equipment. So, like I said, we called around to try and see what the different options are. We're recommending, staff is recommending that we deliver that down to Nortrax and for getting it fixed, but then rent, hopefully just for 1 month for the $3,000.
What year is that backhoe?
The old one or the new one?
98?
Ours?
The one that's broke down.
98.
Yeah, 98, yeah.
No,
Do
go ahead, Kenny.
do we know what's wrong with it?
No.
And we don't
not
know what it's
exactly.
gonna cost us?
We don't know what it's gonna cost us.
On the shipment of this rate, now, they're saying $300 for shipping. Is that one way or both ways? If Scott has to go,
No, he would pick it up and bring it back.
that's the
300,
price.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And we only have one?
Yeah.
Is there any other questions? If not, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion that a lease agreement be approved with Nortrax for a 310 John Deere backhoe at $3,000 per month with $300 shipping.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. Now we'll move on to the approval of the scrap tire cleanup grant.
Remember last year, I had some questions where a couple local communities did receive a grant through the DEQ for scrap tire, and it was one of those grants that I think it came out, it was not highly publicized, but one of the things we did as a solid waste management authority is we talked about everybody getting involved this year in applying, and that's exactly what we did. The townships and the city, Norway, Iron Mountain, Kingsford, Brighting, Waseda, what did I say about it? Segola, Felch, we all were awarded this scrap tire grant. So we don't have the exact details on the administration of it, other than we will have the drop-off area in Quinnipiac, just like they did last year. We're working with GAD to have a single dumpster, and then you'd come in with your ID and a utility bill. You're gonna have a utility bill, because there are Norway addresses that are in Norway Township. We have to make sure that they apply it to, you'll be able to get rid of your tires, because Norway Township and the city have the grant. It's just that they want to apply it to the right balance sheet, so to speak. But we'll get more information out as it comes in. But as far as procedures, we need to approve the grant agreement and get it signed and sent back to DEQ.
All right, if there's no other questions, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the scrap tire cleanup grant agreement for FY 2017-18 be approved.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval of the City of Norway Buildings and Ground Energy Efficient Project.
Okay, this is, we've done these energy efficiency projects before. We did LED lighting inside the city hall. When we do these projects, we get grant monies through our energy efficiency partners. So for this particular project, this is all for basically exterior lighting and mainly bulbs. What it is we are replacing all of the fixtures, all of the bulbs and fixtures on the exteriors of our buildings, including the hydro and lighting inside the hydro. I've given you an email which shows the incentives. The EU incentive, the total cost of the project is $5,907. It's a material-only project for us, price. Our guys are gonna be doing the fixtures and doing the bulb work. But EU incentive is $2,786. There's an incentive from WPPI for $758. So cost of the project after the incentives is $2,363. The annual bill reduction is $5,000, so it's roughly over five to 6 months of ROI.
Ray, on this, maybe I'd asked that before a couple of years ago. Mr. Forbes, Jeff, he was kind of in charge of this.
Yes.
Did they ever look at the spotlights at that museum? Their electric bills are really, really high, and I don't know if it's because they got those lights on the side all the time.
Yeah,
Those
the
exterior
building
lights,
showing.
yeah, and that's, looking at their utility bill, that's gotta be the reason why it's so high.
I'm not sure if he specifically looked at it. We could add some monies to this and account for them. I mean, our return on investment
Yeah.
is tremendous.
Great,
So
yeah.
you wouldn't want to miss out and leave them out just because we didn't look at it.
And maybe even the lights inside, I'm not sure on that, but it's, I said, their bill is really high.
I mean, if you would like to, I don't know, we could estimate a couple $100 for those fixtures, or even say it's $3,000, not to exceed $3,000, and we can account for it. I mean, it's all for exterior lighting, it's all the same type of project, and it would be, you know, our return is just,
Yeah, the return is
there would be
great.
no
I mean,
reason not to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Does
that'd be fine.
anybody else have a problem with that?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Why not just say $3,000 even, and would, still well within the return.
Okay, do I have a motion on that?
I'll make the motion then that the city staff be approved to purchase for a cost not to exceed $3,000 for light fixtures and materials to complete the buildings and grounds energy efficiency project.
Support.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mrs. Drew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
We're going to move on to 14, approval of Michigan Department of Treasury pension system waiver.
If you remember a few months ago, we were talking about a bill that was passed this past fall in Lansing, which it was, a lot of it was a reporting type bill where communities, and most communities that are under a certain threshold in the pension system have certain reporting requirements. One of the issues we have is that we are under that threshold. We're required to file a waiver application, and if we don't file a waiver application, then there's a 3-person board that will dictate what our pension recovery is going to look like. There's a couple things that happened in the initial application. When Mary and I looked at it, one of the things that stuck out was that, you know, we have 54%, I believe is the number, of our revenues come from the utilities, the pension comes from the utilities. We were not allowed to use that revenue from the utilities. We had to take all of our pension obligation, but yet we could only take the general fund revenue, which kicked us into that waiver situation. So now, we were on a conference webinar last week, and now we, through the waiver process, add that back in. So, you know, we think that the waiver is not going to be a problem for us. We just have to now go through the application. One of the requirements is that the council pass a resolution, basically it's a resolution of support, you know, for the waiver. So it says it's resolved, be it resolved that the city council approve the attached application waiver plan form 5583 with the attachments in accordance with Public Act 202 of 2017 to the Michigan Department of Treasury. So that's what we're having for you today. We have to have that application in by, what was it, April 16th? So.
And then I also would like to make a comment on the retirement. You know, we met with people and whatever. We're not just unique to this, especially this MERS, with the meeting that I went with Mr. Anderson and other people around the community. And, you know, it's really not the city's fault, and it's really not the employee's fault, the way that I look at it. It's just, MERS hasn't given us the returns that we were supposed to get. And, everybody's kind of in the same boat, but I mean, at least talking to different people from the other communities, I think Norway, we're somewhat a step ahead of them. A lot of them are in a lot worse shape than what Norway is right now. I don't know if that's at least that's a good thing to it.
Yeah, the percentage numbers are low, there's no question. It's something that the legislature, when the governor put together the task force this past year, and they went through it, I mean, they recognized, it's not just cities, it's all public agencies, so it's the cities, the road commissions, libraries, any of the public entities other than schools. Schools have their own system. So it's any of the MERS system employers. And again, as we go through the application and the waiver, when you look at what we've done and what we've negotiated with the employees over a decade plus to bring that, you know, the future costs down, everybody's pitched in, you know, and it's not something that's gonna get solved in a day, but it's definitely, you know, that, when they find out what we've done, you know, they're very positive
Yeah, they were.
towards our approach. So, you know, that's something that we are proud of, but until, you mentioned the return on investments, I have a chart, I went back to 2006, I could keep going, but I think a decade pretty much tells the story. In our actuarial each year, they use an investment return number. They've been using 8%. Our average since 2000, well, the last 2 years, they've exceeded the investment. But prior to that, the average was 4.5%. So every year they're telling us what we're supposed to pay in, using an 8% return on our investments, and it comes back at 4.5%. So we're going backwards by the numbers they give us. And you know, that's been a problem, and that's been a problem all over the state. When a fellow manager from Port Huron went in and testified this past fall, I know him and I talked ad nauseum, because I've been on this crusade since 2003, and we talked ad nauseum about this issue, and he brought it up. He was there to testify, he brought it up, and I think the individual legislators understand that. It's just, you know, they felt like they had to act, do it, you know, have this reporting feature, and so we're doing the dance with them and putting the applications together. But when we go through the corrective actions, if that's a right term, you know, we feel pretty confident about it. So.
Is there any other questions? If not, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion that resolution 2018-05 be approved.
Support.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes?
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Minigini.
Yes.
Mr. Oja.
Yes.
We'll move on to 15, chipper purchase.
Well, you got tabled this last meeting, and a request was that we have maintenance costs for the chipper, the current chipper. I ran some numbers, did some research, and Rick got me some information. The run hours, we purchased the chipper used. There were 290 run hours on the piece of equipment when we bought it in August of 2011. Currently, there are 449 run hours. So over the past 6 years, we've put on 159 hours on the chipper. Taking a look, we've put in 4 clutches in that time period, roughly about 1.5 years per clutch. And one of the handouts I gave you showed that typically it's about $1,000. We had 1 year in 2015 where we actually spent $2,000 on the unit, but it's either just under or just over $1,000. And so we spent $5,200 in maintenance over that time period. We run basically 40 hours. For every 40 hours, we're putting a clutch in the chipper unit. So in the conversation from the last meeting, one of the ideas that this unit that we're looking at, it is recommended from Asplund Tree Service. Asplund does a lot of cutting and a lot of chipping over the course of a year for We Energies, and they've done work for us. They highly recommend this particular unit because it does not have a clutch. So from a maintenance standpoint, it's a much more reliable unit, less costly. Also, one of the ideas that we've had, and I've talked with the staff, with the foreman about it, is that during the course of the summer, the electric department doesn't do a lot of chipping, cutting work over the summer. We use this in the electric department, obviously, for their brushing activities, but we also would use it for DPW. We do boulevard trees. We do a lot of chipping in there. Parks and Rec would use it if we have any of the trees and brush that we cut down. But one of the ideas was bringing it out to the compost site you know, you saw the mound we had last year at the end of the year, that cost us $5,000 just to get rid of that mound. I know that the township will pay half, but in the course of a year, we could send a couple of our summer employees out on periodic basis and just start nipping away at it. It might not be, if we can keep people from putting stumps out there and some of the big ticket items, I think we could probably pick away at it, you know, and so it might, over the course of time, it might actually help us out as well. So bringing it back just for council reconsideration, and you can give me some guidance.
Talking with David on it a little bit, this one, the new one could handle the larger material, that's why we could take it to the compost site, where the current one we can't, because it can't take anything.
Yeah, doesn't handle as big, this one handles a little bigger.
Yeah.
Well, I was the one that questioned buying it, not wanting to spend any more money from the electric department until we totally find out what's gonna happen down at our hydro, but looking at these figures, we just about have to get a new one.
When the chippers do take a pounding maintenance-wise, just for the nature of being a chipper.
But I can't believe they're giving us $24,000 on a trade-in if it's a piece of junk.
I'm not arguing with
No, not arguing. And then, like you said, Asplin recommended this one.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Vermeer chipper for a price not to exceed $21,652.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. At this time, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to address the council, they could do so right now. There is a 3-minute per person time limit.
It's impossible for me to talk only that much.
Okay. All right, and we'll move on to council comments. Brett?
I got a couple. The Oakcrest Drive properties, you guys had talked about, or Ray had put in memo about moving them from 5 acre down to 2.5 acre. What's the additional cost in having to do that, if we were to do that?
The additional surveying costs?
Yeah.
I don't have an estimate yet. Before we finalized it, I wanted to see if that was something you wanted me to investigate and possibly move on. When we were looking at comparables, Jim and I both, we used 2.5, it could be 3. It seems like what's out there is more in that range, and that the extra 2 acres, you know, from a benefit per acre is not gonna be, it'll be that first 3 acres that we get all our benefit.
From a realty aspect, is it better to be at 2.5 versus 5? I
Yeah,
mean, from that aspect.
that's where you see a lot of these
I was
subdivisions
just gonna say
going.
that probably even taxes wise and that. And then you also could put a provision in there if you wanted to, or if somebody wanted to buy the 2 lots, they could, but they'd have to put a certain, build at a certain price, right?
You could do
that
some
too.
restrictions, we did that at the spring. We've recently rescinded a couple, I mean, the original restrictions was that you could only buy 1 lot, you know, build on 1 lot, you couldn't buy 2. We got down to where we weren't selling the lots, and quite frankly, they were smaller lots, or 1/2 acre lots, and so we actually had a couple of nice homes go in where they picked up 2 or 3 lots and put them together. And I think it worked out well in that situation. Out there, I don't know if I'd recommend doing that initially. You know, 2.5 is still pretty good size, put a house. And it's gonna be linear, it's not gonna be deep, so, I mean, it'll be blocked, but, you know, if you buy 2, it's gonna be more on a linear basis. The difference is that instead of 7 homes, you'll get 10 on that frontage. And I think
That's a
just makes
plus.
sense, yeah.
The one concern I had with going down smaller is if somebody's looking, especially out there in rural residential, if you will say want a horse, you need 5 acres for that.
Yeah.
So you completely remove that as an option. That's my one concern with going down to the 2.5 acre, something along that line.
Yeah, and that's really a planning commission question, because if we're looking at those properties, the type of property or the type of development out there, I know we have right to farm, but 2.5 is the minimum size for rural residential.
Right.
You know, so the question is that you want to encourage?
I don't know, that's, from being able to market the properties, is that
Right.
gonna be a benefit over
I've seen more anti than I have.
Okay, that's,
In my time.
that was just one why I was thinking.
Yeah.
And we could also, I mean, it's up to everybody, but we could also say that if there was a situation, they could come to council and we could hear it. I mean, it's up to you guys how you want to handle it, or do you want to try to sell it this way now and then wait till later?
It sounds like we're seriously considering that option, so I need to follow through and find out the additional cost, you know, to change the property descriptions. I'll do that, and we'll keep the conversation going.
Sounds good.
The other one is the argon pump. If Climate has contacted, is it gonna be this week, next week?
Through David, I've heard that it's on schedule. I did reach out to Eric today to hear firsthand to see what his thoughts were on when he'd be in. He wasn't available, so I didn't talk to him. But I plan this week to find out exactly when he's coming in. I can let everybody know once I know. But I hear it's on.
Eric's out of town for the week.
For the week? Okay, well, I assume he carries his cell phone, so I left him a brief message, so.
Okay.
But I think from what I've heard, it's on schedule,
Okay,
so.
no further question.
Lee?
Yeah, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Thorne. He's a young gentleman going to the University of Michigan, and he's going to be at the NCAA Final Championship game tonight as a member of the band. So he'll almost be getting a ringside seat. With that, go blue, even though personally, I think the wrong Michigan team is in the finals. That's all I have.
Well, I'd like to thank Becky Kleikamp and her family for the Easter egg hunt. They had less than ideal conditions and they still soldiered through it, and from what I understand, they had a really enjoyable event and everyone there had fun with it and the kids enjoyed themselves. Ray, do we have, are we still getting together the information on amending the charter?
I have all the information for you. It's just a matter of what the council wants to do, how to move forward. There are a couple of options that was laid out, so I don't think I can provide any additional information. So.
That's all I have.
I also would like to thank the Kleikamp family. They do a wonderful job every year with the Easter egg hunt. It brings a lot of people to our community, and it's nice to see all the pictures out there on Facebook of all the kids smiling. And like Jeremy said, this year wasn't ideal, but that doesn't mean nothing to the kids. They don't care, rain or shine, snow, they're out there, and I really appreciate everybody who works on that for our community. And then I also had a question, have we heard anything from Lita Strobe on when they're gonna start, or?
Well, I have an email from their new project manager, says everything is on schedule. Left a message for him. I haven't personally talked to him, so that's the information I have.
Okay.
As long as everything stays on schedule, you know,
Right.
we're good. But I do want to talk to him.
Okay, well, once you get a hold of them, let the council know.
Absolutely.
Where we're at with that. That's all I have. Mr. Anderson?
Go blue.
Mary? Nothing. If I have no other questions, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes?
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Menagini.
Yes.
Mr. Oja.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned. What time is the game on?
8:20.
Oh, there you go.
Perfect, huh?
Once the police left, Bruce, I was gonna call you.
I'm not a hard